I never believed in the paranormal, but after my time in the fraternity house I was in college, that all changed. My grandpa was Sigma Nu, and so was my dad. From the time I was conceived, they were convinced I would be too. The whole family started buying me Sigma Nu merch before I even was out of the womb. I even had baby pictures in teeny Sigma Nu onesies and bibs, and by the time I was 16, I owned hoodies, sweatpants, wall decor, keychains, and anything else they could find. I didn't mind. Some kids felt stifled and forced when their parents obsessed about sending their kids somewhere or pledging a certain fraternity, but I wanted to follow in their footsteps. I pledged and went through all the formalities. I was surprised when I made it in, because I was terrible at socializing. My sophomore year, I was finally moving into the frat house, and I was excited because my dad and grandpa told me so many cool stories about the parties and camaraderie that comes with being in the house amongst the action. I had a fairly small room on the second floor, but it was still bigger than a dorm room, and it was all mine. The first floor had a few bedrooms, but it was mostly 2 living rooms, a big dining room where we always had Sunday dinners, a large kitchen with many fridges and cabinets, and a sunroom. The basement was the recreation and storage area. There were a few storage rooms that we could use if we needed, but the rest of the basement was the rec room. We had a makeshift movie theater set up down there with a projector screen and couches, a pool table, a foosball table, a big stereo system, and video games and TVs. There were big leather couches where a lot of us ended up passing out, never making it to our bedrooms if we partied hard enough. About a week after moving in, everyone was upstairs and I was down in the rec room. My first weekly chore was cleaning it up. We divided chores and pulled straws each week. I had a spray bottle and disinfectant and was wiping down the foosball table when I heard footsteps over near the storage rooms. There was no way to get past into the storage rooms without seeing me, so I was confused at how I was hearing footsteps over there. Turning my head, I didn't see anyone anywhere, but the footsteps were still going. Once they stopped, the door to one of the storage rooms slowly started opening. I was shocked. I had never seen anything like it, and there was no one around. I really didn't know what to think or do, because frankly, I'd never been in that position before. I mean, what do most people do when they hear footsteps and a door opens in front of their eyes, but no one is physically there? So I just stood in shock, staring, until someone came along and was tapping me on the shoulder. "Dude, what gives? It looks like you've seen a ghost." I laughed and shrugged. "Must be tired or something," I said. I wasn't about to be like, "Oh, I heard footsteps and then a door opened by itself." "Ugh, the guys need to stop leaving the storage room doors open," he said, walking over and shutting the door pointedly. I went about cleaning the rest of the rec room, trying to forget what I just witnessed. No matter how hard I tried justifying it, there was no answer. The wind could cause a door to open, but not footsteps. Footsteps could be from the upstairs, and they just sounded close, but then explain the door opening. A few days later, I had all but forgotten about the incident with all the fraternity events and schoolwork, but I was about to get a reminder that night. I was in my room, sitting on my bed, reading a few chapters in some textbook, when I heard one of the guys walking towards my room. I figured someone needed notes for something and shook my head. These guys would be lost without my expert note-taking skills, I thought. The footsteps stopped at my door, but there was no knock. I waited a few seconds, expecting one of the guys to knock and holler, "It's me," like they always did when they were coming to take my notes. The door flew open and slammed against the wall so hard that I jumped, my book flying onto the floor. "Real funny, whoever's out there," I said. Briskly walking over to the doorway, I looked around and there was no sign of anyone. There was no way they could have gotten away that quickly. I just shook my head, closed the door, and went back to studying. Later, as I was almost asleep, the door flung wide open again, slamming into the wall. Since I was almost asleep, it scared me even more than the incident earlier. I nearly rolled right out of my bed. There was no one around again, and I definitely knew none of the guys were messing with me, because everyone else was out at a kegger at our brother fraternity. I stayed back because I wanted to stay on track with my assignments, and I've never been a huge partier. It was hard to escape being in our fraternity, but I did sometimes just take a night off. I was starting to get angry, not knowing why I was being targeted by what seemed to be a ghost, even though I'd never believed in them before. Okay, what the heck do you want? Who am I even talking to? A dead person? I yelled, frustrated. Just then, the door slammed shut again, and there were footsteps going away from it. I rushed over and flung the door open, stepped into the hallway, and nearly passed out. There, at the end of the hallway, heading down the stairs, was a figure. It wasn't a living person, you could tell by the color of it. Once I regained the ability to move, I went into investigative mode. I had to know what the heck was going on. Just by researching the frat house, I came up with an entire forum of stories from previous students. As I read them, I realized the entity only targeted non-believers, and his MO is in fact slamming doors and unexplained footsteps. Apparently, many years ago, somewhere between the time my grandpa attended and the time my dad attended, the house prankster was playing pranks, slamming doors with invisible string, and hiding behind doors and popping out, just doing whatever he could to prank his roommates. But one evening, he hid behind the balcony door to scare the guy who lived in my room at the time. The guy scared so hard that he shoved the prankster from reflex, and he fell over the balcony, landing on the concrete. He didn't make it. Ever since then, he's been roaming the frat house, slamming doors and pulling other pranks on the house, especially the person who has the room I was in each year. At least he isn't a mean spirit, he's just trying to get a reaction. Thanks for sharing your unique story. If you have a paranormal story to share, email it to the address in the description below. Please like the video if you haven't and subscribe. And with that, see you tomorrow, friend.